It's episode 241 of View from 202. It's Brit, Peaches, and Cork this week. Sam is unfortunately out with a real honest-to-God injury. Not that his other injuries aren't honest, but he has out with a ruptured Achilles. That's not a bit. That does sound like a severe injury that we would joke about other weeks.
There legitimately is a 202 injury list this week.
And got it while playing for GeoGuessr. And if he plays his cards right, he might get to go to the hospital for special surgery, maybe, which would be exciting.
Well, if you put it like that, it sounds more like a joke, but Sam actually...
No, I mean, he really does have a ruptured Achilles, and that's why he's not here on this,
unfortunately,
this podcast tonight, which is unfortunate as it's a big one. Last week on 202... you may remember that we were, saying,
the last week of 202, maybe.
No, last week on 202, we were ending the show by saying, like, God, what are we even going to talk about? Should we just read a chapter of a book? Should we just watch a movie? And, well, dear reader, that is not our problem this week. Quite a bit to talk about if you've been following the New York Red Bulls in the week. There's the 1-1 draw to San Jose, but that's bearing the lead because, of course, there is the 20-minute prolonged fiasco courtesy of Dante Van Zier and Gerhard Struber that is dominating, and unfortunately, but rightly so, dominating RBNY world this week as Dante Van Zier uses a racial slur on the pitch, and then Gerhard Struber fails to take him out for the match. It's been everything that not only Red Bulls world has been talking about and focusing about, but MLS and even outside of the MLS world, because it is a really shameful and disappointing incident for this club. A real new low, real new rock bottom. We're recording on Tuesday night here. As of now, the club has released 3 statements, each one seemingly worse than the last. Gerhard Struber still failed to apologize for his lack of action. Dante Van Zier has, through the club, said, well, it's unclear if he's been asked to step away from the club, but he is going to step away from the club to avoid being a distraction. The club has not said they're going to suspend him, and the statement was worded in such a way that almost made it sound like it was his move to step away rather than the club handing any discipline. So as of tonight, that is the sort of situation that we're dealing with. Maybe by the time you listen to it, that will change. But I think, as we'll get into for the rest of this night, plenty to be disappointed with, even with this current state of affairs through Tuesday night. Even if things change in a couple days, it's a lot of mishandling of the situation. But before we get to that, let's break down this game 1-1 against San Jose and break down this incident. So this was a strange game. I think it's also weird to think that this is one game where, Cork, you were joining us in the stands from the get-go from this time. The one week that you were not behind the...
I sure picked the right week to go into semi-retirement.
Yeah.
So I'm honestly, obviously I'm going a little bit without a filter on Twitter a bit about all this, but also, I'm, like you just said, this is kind of the first thing to happen at the club in a few years that I'm approaching it as a fan, as a civilian. I have no more knowledge than any other person who was either at the arena or, just watched on TV about what happened. That being said, I think, I kind of said this on Twitter earlier today, where I think despite all that, I don't think there's really any inside information that's even relevant or would be relevant to this, because I think, the outcome and what happened the other night is pretty clear. There was 20 minutes of contemplation, discussion, negotiation, whatever you want to call it. And it ended with the manager of the club who makes the final call on anything that happens on the field with the team. It ended with him making the decision after that 20-minute ordeal to give the benefit of the doubt to a player who ended up admitting that he committed the offense in question here. There's not really any hairs to split or, kind of forensics to go through. I mean, there's been a lot of, kind of isolation and just, looking at different parts of the video. And of course that's interesting and, for a lot of reasons, but, as far as just, kind of the gravity of the situation and the outcome of what happened, that's just incredibly clear and the only thing that's really relevant to what the consequences end up being. So, I don't really have anything more to add that hasn't been, well expressed around both this, home fan base and, around the league, around the world a little bit, that it's just, a shameful thing. And I think maybe part of what, is leading people to, maybe, look into a lot of the, little splices of video or whatnot is that it's kind of surreal. You almost like you want to watch it again a couple times because you want to make sure that that actually happened. That, a player who was, being faced with such an accusation was not appreciating the gravity of it, but rather laughing. That a manager who was being, politely communicated to by the other team, and maybe the officials, we don't know, but ending all that with, fairly defiantly, leaving the player in the game. And to add insult to injury, it was a player who not only has been deemed not fit to play full matches, strangely, in the first few weeks of the season, but also a player who ended up being substituted anyway later in the match. So just so many context clues that are just incredibly ugly. And I guess that's more or less what the gist of what I've been communicating about the incident, to the extent of the platform that I have now, this week, is just that it's, it's pretty cut and dry, how bad it was. And, I guess we're moving into the territory now of deciding. I mean, we're not deciding, but, the club, the league, whoever, deciding what the consequences are going to be.
Yeah, I mean, is anyone deciding? Is anyone home? Back to our old question for a couple of years now. But I do think it's true to phrase it as a decision here by Struber, because the lack of decision is a decision in its own way. He failed to take action, and that was making a statement and reacting to the situation in a way. And I think, I totally agree that, like, getting into the forensics of the videos overlooks the fact that plainly apparent that there was an enormous vacuum of leadership there. Absolutely no leadership by the manager, no control of the situation, especially apparent from the stands. Because this is, I think, the strangest game or sporting event I've been at in the stands anywhere. We were sitting up on 202 all together, and, the incident, so, in case you haven't watched the match, of course, it starts in around the 55th minute where San Jose player Judson,
kind of a high tackle,
has a high boot, hits Dylan Nealis on the shoulder, is given a yellow card.
Well, there's initial misdirection where Sean Nealis then comes in,
right,
and gets a yellow for screaming at the ref.
That's true.
About the high foul.
It wasn't until later that Judson got the yellow card for the actual foul.
Right.
But among this scrum is, and both players were down on the pitch for a long time, to the point where, you could tell that it was probably going to last a while. So from, like, being in the stands, our experience was sort of like, all right, it's just going to be a long it's a long stoppage. People were going and getting water, and, a lot part of me was just like, oh, it's, modern football. We're probably going to take like 5 minutes for this, because that's kind of just what goes on. And it took 5 to 6 minutes before we started being like, wait, what are we waiting for? Because, like, Judson eventually gets up and leaves the pitch, and we're all just standing around. And I'm slowly being like, guys, what is going on? Because the ref by this point, and this is a recounting of how it looked in the stands. The ref at this point, from our view, is walking around with like his hands on behind his back, kind of just politely waiting. And also no one is, up in the ref's face either. And looks like we could see the huddle a bit between Luchi Gonzalez, San Jose's manager, Gerhard, and a couple players in the fourth, referee Chris Penso. But completely bizarre situation because it's not that much longer after where some of the San Jose players like get a ball and start kicking around themselves.
It was weird because I mean we saw the initial kind of scrap too where Van Zier got dragged away, where even that kind of just looked like an innocuous normal, just sort of like handbags that happen when there's rough challenge in a game, and even that didn't really throw anybody off until the minutes started to, go on, and you started to see, like Brit was saying, the coaches start to huddle and players pulling balls out to start, just warming up.
To me, the real suspicion was after Struber emerged, like out of the pitch, like not off the sidelines, out of like a group of like San Jose players, like, what's going on here? And then someone jokingly said, did Dante Van Zier say something racist? And then as the information slowly came up, I thought people were joking along with it because, that's what it ended up happening. But
it was around that time too that I saw San Jose coaches start to wave people off. And that was when I was like, okay, now I think I can see what
things are coming together. Yeah. Well, that's when the information started trickling in. And, and it was to that point, it was like, oh, this is very surreal. Like, this is like, I can't believe this is what we're witnessing.
It was strange to me, too, that there wasn't more consolidation. Because, like, I was like, oh, like maybe San Jose is going to walk off the pitch and we'll get a little bit of clarity of what's going on. And, like, it looked like they were waving people off, but then that didn't end up happening. And then the Red Bulls were not very organized at all either. Both teams are kind of scattered about. And there was a real just void of leadership, I think, period. And I think that is a real reflection of like Gerhard Struber's lack of leadership and ability to control his own team and his own ground. I mean, it's his stadium, it's his team who had the allegation. It seemed that nobody was, it doesn't seem like, anybody was really defending Dante Van Zier. And even if they were, it's, I think, irrelevant. If somebody, as Luchi Gonzalez said, if he were in that situation and it was his player that was accused of doing that, he would sub him out. And I think this got caught on the hot mic on the broadcast.
Yeah, no, I mean, Gonzalez, he went on. I mean, Gonzalez, the part where Gonzalez is caught on mic is where he says, if it was my player, I would take him off, even if we don't know and we may never know, is what he said. Yeah.
Especially considering the context that you were laying out a bit, where it's like, this is not even a player that Gerhard Struber has been rating or trusting to play at all.
Right. Yeah.
So the fact that he only subs him off 10 minutes later just seems extra like vindictive and insulting. And there's really,
and I really wish I couldn't read into past, incidents and experiences with Gerhard Struber into, that sort of an act, it's not a good look from any direction, especially given some of the history here.
Even if you're being charitable to Dante Van Zier here, right? Like, isn't that an unsafe thing to be putting him back into the line of fire for?
Yeah, you should pull, even if it's like, even if it were someone that you'd be shocked and it didn't make sense, I think you still sub the player out in that case.
It's not like even in the, abhorrent instance where Struber thinks that it's, some kind of gamesmanship where they're trying to get rid of his, one of his better players, even if, he's honestly so fucked in the mind that he would think that, it's not like this happens every game.
Right.
It's happening. It's getting more attention in the world of football in the last, decade or so, with good reason, when these sorts of things happens. But it's not like it's been turned into some kind of weapon. It's not like it happens regularly enough where you could think there's any kind of, mischief behind it.
Maybe his thought was, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I would do that as a bit, you know? I mean, that's probably, if he would ever dare to think that was what was happening on San Jose's side, that's probably part of the thought process for him, right? It's like an absurd idea to entertain that like San Jose would just be
making it up.
absolutely like absurd and unacceptable to
especially
even entertain
considering, I mean, not that this would have been clear in the moment, but I mean, the main, kind of spokesperson for San Jose's, kind of camp and all this has been Jeremy Ebobisse, who has a very sterling reputation as a, very aware kind of guy. And some of his comments after the game speak to this very much as well. Somebody who knows what kind of turf they're dealing with when you get into something like this and would not do it frivolously.
Right.
So I think, that's more after the fact, obviously, but, even if that wasn't the case, I mean, you could see the situation where there were numerous San Jose players going to Struber directly. And I mean, to then defy that, it doesn't feel like anything other than an implicit accusation that he didn't think it was a legitimate complaint and didn't think it was real.
Right.
And his statement, Struber's own statement, lays out the case. And again, with, like you said, without apologizing in any real way, the main crux of the statement is that with the information I had, I was given wrong information on the field. Based on what you see in that tape, what could he have misinterpreted?
Yeah.
Also,
Other than just not thinking it was bullshit.
right. And like for both sides of the information, or like whatever information you get, there's a case to set Dante Van Zero.
Right.
No matter.
This would be a distraction to your own players too.
Right.
It was a distraction to us. Even if someone was on the field saying, Gerhard, he didn't say it, still should have taken him off.
Yeah, exactly.
Still, it doesn't change that at all. That you should still have taken him off. Even if he thought in his heart of his hearts, my player wouldn't do that. Still, the reaction should be, let's take him off and we'll deal with this later. Like,
even if you were to protect him, that's how you protect him.
Also, hell of a time, literally the first time ever Gerhard Struber has backed his players.
Yeah.
Literally the first time ever Gerhard Struber has backed a player is when he says a racial slur. Food for thought. Loves to throw his players under the bus.
Didn't have all the facts on Drew Yearwood, but was glad to say immediately after the game that he's fucked.
When you're referring to the incident where Drew kicked the ball into the stands unintentionally because he was just kicking a ball in frustration. No hesitation to say Drew fucked up and has to do better. For this, though, endless patience for accusations of racism that, again, have been admitted. Dante Van Zier has said he did say it. And he said he didn't mean it, but that's just like, that's nonsense filler, like typical nonsense filler. Like, what does that mean? And it's like the classic, like, apology, like, oh, I'm sorry if you were hurt by it, like, type vibes. Like, it makes no difference. Like, oh, I didn't direct it at anyone in particular. Literally meaningless. Like what?
And any cultural difference thing. I mean, it was multiple San Jose players of varying native languages who immediately reacted to whatever he said.
Yeah.
It's not something that, could have been misconstrued the way you saw the reactions.
Right. And then, so keep factoring, Dante Van Zier admitted that he said it. People told Gerhard Struber that what the situation was. And I think the most generous reading of the situation is that Gerhard Struber got overwhelmed and didn't know what to do and got lost and just like panicked and didn't do anything, which is unacceptable still. It's like a weak leadership, incapable of leading, totally hapless manager, and he has to go. Most harsh reading of the situation is that he, as we're laying out, assumed that this was a lie on San Jose's part, and they're trying to remove one of his players that he doesn't even really rate that much, by the way, has not trusted to play 65 minutes, and that he was not going to fall for this trick and vindictively kept him in for longer, only to sub him out only 10 minutes later into play anyway. In which case, he also has to go. He has to go even faster. I mean, he should have been gone on Monday morning. Right now it's Tuesday night. Should have been gone, even on Sunday, Christmas,
on Saturday night,
on Easter morning, And especially, Easter reminds me that Gerhard Struber has now been replying to fans on Instagram on Easter morning when they're criticizing his terrible lack of leadership and decision making here. Spent his Easter Sunday not with his family because they, did not move to the United States with him while he could go resume build. He's been spending this weekend not solemnly reflecting, but taunting fans who have had the audacity to point out that this situation is fucked. He needs to go. Should have been gone on Monday, and it's the lowest, most embarrassing, disgraceful thing that this guy is still around and was ever even here for the first place. And it does square with his, like, unfortunately, his reputation up to this point has been that he's a really shitty dickhead too. And it totally fits. So he's got no leash. He's got no leeway. He seems to be a terrible leader. He seems to be at best just hapless in the face of active racism happening at his workplace and on his team that he manages. And it's unacceptable all the way around. Dante Vinzier also has to go. No way that, like, just there's no for a 25-year-old man to say that kind of shit. Not that there's an acceptable age, there isn't, but like no possible thing you could say could be an excuse for this. I don't care how much money was spent on him.
How do you remedy that with your teammates, or like you just can't do that.
Well, I guess that, I mean, maybe reading a little too much into it, but we have seen some, social media posts, at least from other players on the team, that you could maybe read as a, protest against the way Saturday night was handled.
Oh, you mean the one referring to another Belgian?
Yeah. Well, that is the most, I think prominent one was Hassan and Dom posting a Romelu Lukaku kind of protest image.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and they did that celebration against us when they scored.
Yeah, I mean, this was another weird dynamic of being there on Saturday. That it was apparent that the vast majority of the crowd had no idea what had happened. We were all on our phones because I wasn't. Weird week, but. It's a weird. I was in a weird attitude going to this game. I broke my phone coming into the stadium, but so we were all on our phones and we all knew what was going on. Finally, after we restarted play, Dante Vanzier tries this ridiculous overhead bike. I was thinking, like, God, are they even going to pass the ball to him? But lo and behold, Corey Brit creates a chance where it makes so Kyle Duncan's only real option is just, without really having to think about it, just squaring it back to the center of play. And it's a nice little ball, but it unfortunately leaves him no chance but to give the ball to Dante Vanzier, who flicks it up and hits the ball into row double Z. And the crowd gets really excited because it's the first bit of soccer they've seen for 20 minutes. But good Lord, thank God he did not score that shit. Thank God he wouldn't have scored in DSA League either, because guy, one, he's banned, and two, has no touch. And it was a really awkward experience, though, of like, we were aware what had gone on, but it just, other people at the game were just kind of randos, normies, were just like, yeah, I don't know, team's playing soccer in front of me. And they would have scored if he celebrated. All right, they would have celebrated if he scored, which again is also another reason why he shouldn't have been on the pitch too, just to, way downstream from the actual issue at hand. Yeah,
I had such a weird, morbid curiosity of like, oh my God, if he had scored that, just what would that celebration have looked like? Oh.
Or who would have celebrated with him. San Jose scores because, lo and behold, actually, San Jose plays soccer, unlike Gerhard Struber's teams, and we're actually a decent, pretty nifty team. Score one goal. Christian Espinoza scores a very nice goal against us, and they do a kind of muted celebration together. That, like, at this point, I was still kind of trying to piece bits together based on what everyone was telling me. But like after that, I was like, okay, clearly something happened, because it was like not a normal celebration. They clearly like all got together and were like, did it. And San Jose almost put a couple on us. And I kind of, I wish they did. It's really awkward and weird that we came back and like tied this game in extra time.
I mean, I was actively rooting for us to lose, honestly, at this game.
Yeah, it was. And they almost piled it on, because they were playing better than us too. I mean, we came alive a little bit at the end when Vanzier was off the pitch. But San Jose was actually, they looked like a team that, they looked how we used to look, in a way that you would actually coherently press in the final third and dispossess and move around. And they easily moved around our, weak semblance of a press. And Jackson Hewell was having a hell of a game.
Yeah, that guy looked really good.
Just moving around pressure. And there was a second there. It looked like they were going to win, maybe like start slicing us open 2-3. No, I think if they score a second goal, our team probably just lets the guard down and kind of maybe the floodgates open. Because it was a bizarre circumstance, though.
20 minutes of stoppage time that they had to awkwardly go through. 21, yeah.
Yeah, where it's like at that point I was like, they should just actually add another clock onto the thing.
Yeah, I'm glad they stopped it right at the end of time and they didn't add it for the extra goal.
Part of me does wonder, like, I mean, the onus isn't on the ref, but like, why didn't the ref just? I would have just red carded him.
Yeah,
like, I guess it looks like he was pretty close.
Right.
By maybe he didn't hear directly, but like, I don't know. I don't know what the typical protocol is for like refs checking in with like consulting with other refs. I guess the fourth ref wouldn't have heard it because it was far away, but really just the shadow that gets cast over this match, and everything else kind of feels incidental. But for what it's worth, the Rebels still only have one win this year, and have still only scored a paltry handful of goals and have looked largely terrible. So even if you're going to go out of your way to defend and or deflect for Gerhard Struber, there's still the fact that he's a dog shit soccer coach at the end of the day too. So there's really nothing to like about this situation. But yeah, that's been the week for the Red Bulls. I guess there's some actions planned. I think all the supporters groups have issued some statements. And stay tuned for more updates from the supporters groups on that front. I think, thankfully, the response among the Red Bulls, fan base has been, I think, pointed very much in the right direction, saying this has all been very embarrassing and unacceptable. And the management of it after the match has also been really amateur and offensive. Just really not seeming to take the issue seriously. And it begs the question of, like, do they even know who makes the decision to fire Gerhard Struber? Does that position exist, especially now that Mateschitz is dead? And
seriously,
does anyone actually have, like, do they even know among the org chart who would do that? Or is it Struber's little playhouse that he's been dealing with, and that's why nothing is happening? It seems like real atrophy and paralysis in the back part of the club as well. And I can't imagine. I guess training resumed today, which is bizarre to think about. I mean, I guess Van Zier stepped away, but Gerhard Struber presumably is still leading training. Yeah. And I can't imagine he has any credibility. Especially as, like, everyone has noticed that he has failed to apologize for his involvement and lack of leadership.
And apparently is comfortable enough with himself and his situation that he can just have a go at fans personally.
Yeah.
Online. I mean, even if it wasn't this situation, the fact that a manager would be, and I guess I won't go. Yeah. Well, leaving one part aside, it's very bizarre for a manager to be so focused on reading his critics and responding to his critics and being online in general, especially when supposedly the kind of pitch that you get about who Gerhard Struber is as a coach is that he's this psychotic 100% focused machine focused on coaching pressing soccer. Meanwhile, he's gallivanting around online like a freaking college kid.
Yeah, name searching like the menswear guy or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's just bad. I mean, it's the seal's pretty much broken both on this pod and online about mine and our group's kind of feelings about Struber. And this is a situation where his position is untenable. Even if in a pragmatic way, like which we were kind of saying on this show during the early parts of the season as results started to struggle, was that even if there's kind of on paper rationale for, maybe letting him ride out the season, or, that it's not immediately a fireable situation yet. Now, after a situation like this, it's just beyond any question.
There's no excuse. Also, like,
he needs to go. I just have zero faith in him as the manager of this club. And, it's just pretty shameful situation for the club to be in, in a quieter way before this. But I mean, I think the way Struber has ensconced himself in the club, like Brit was just laying out, I think meant that a situation like this was always kind of a lurking time bomb. Even if it wasn't racism, any sort of situation that required some non-obvious leadership. I mean, this was obvious leadership actually, but any situation that required some, actual thought and decision, and some gravity, that, he would fail because of his own defiance and just general shitty attitude about what he thinks he's responsible for at this club.
Right. And it's just such an egotistical thing to, if I didn't know more about Struber, I would say that the club let that statement out just because they're trying to like let him take the knife, like fall on the sword. But, to me, it also very much reads like this is like his ego let him only let that go.
That was
like, what are you saying here in your statement is basically, what I did at the time was the right decision. I know now that it was the wrong decision, but would I have changed my mind? No, is like what he's saying, right? Like he's not even admitting to doing the wrong thing. It's just absolutely absurd that someone can have such an ego like that, especially in a situation as sensitive as this, and presumably having a lot of handlers around him, telling him
very aware of how he looks to the public, all the way to changing shirts at halftime,
and yet he can't like phrase a simple apology, which insane to me, because that just reveals like that's your ego, right? That's what's
I mean, just I've gone kind of nuclear on Twitter with my feelings about it, and it just couldn't be more cut and dry now that I just find him to be an incredibly distasteful manager to be in charge of this club that, like I'm saying, now that I'm, I was before once a Metro, and I'm, back to being more open about it again. I am a fan. I want to see the best for this club. And based on what I've seen from Gerhard Struber, even before this week, but certainly after Saturday night, is, just complete emphatic thumbs down and loss of confidence.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I'm never going to go to RBA again as long as Gerhard Struber is employed, right? At least.
Yeah, we're talking like returning season tickets territory, demanding refunds territory, no interest in sticking around if he's still around, and the longer he stays around, I mean, at this point it's already too long, but really the buck goes all the way up to the top. Like, what kind of organization of Red Bull allowed to happen here? What have they built where this is the result? Where there's, at peak Red Bull optimism, is thinking that like, oh, they're at least very competent business people and know how to run something. And it's like, well, apparently not. Apparently don't know how to run anything, whether it's soccer or just, a regular sort of organization where, there's any sort of accountability or any sort of standards.
This,
or
of course,
HR needs.
This, of course, being the Red Bull Corporation that has had even the non-soccer Red Bull Corporation that's had numerous racism scandals leak out over the years.
Yeah,
down to the marketing,
including
the marketing
racial
deck,
racial harassment essentially in the office.
Yeah. It's and
this is the climate where Gerhard Struber, who we're constantly told was a personal friend of the head of Red Bull, who also ran his own, right-wing media empire. Just all the context is so incredibly ugly in this. Yeah. You can't even make it up. It's just
there's no
awful.
It's just very ugly. There's no good color. It's like when I was going to play DSA League, I had a Red Bull shirt and I had to put it down because I was like, I can't really, it's not the time, it's not, there's
No, I mean,
great
it's
shame in being associated with the way that this has been handled.
Yeah, I mean, it's real rock bottom stuff, to be sure. I feel like it would be even, rock bottom if the team was actually doing well, but they're not,
Yeah.
This is kind of the, very large cherry on the top of what's been a pretty shitty Sunday that's come together over the last year.
Yeah. And even if you take, I think, the official story at face value of like, oh, I don't know, we don't know, we're just trying to figure out what happened, also unacceptable. One, it's fucking wrong, it's bullshit, because Van Ziers, again, himself said that he did say the slur, and it did happen. But even if that were the case, where they're just trying to figure it out and figure out who, putting on their hot dog suit and saying, we're trying to figure out who did this, even if that were the case, or that's genuinely what they think, that means they're just incompetent in a shockingly unacceptable way. They gotta get rid of Struber, gotta get rid of Van Zier, at least suspend him for the year or something, or we'll see what the league does, give him the Bauer treatment or something, even if they're not gonna like cut his contract. There's no way that can you imagine him playing with this team again? But yeah, that's the bare minimum, and then you gotta really, I think, long term expect some more fundamental changes to what the hell is going on here overall, just how are they building the structure of the club?
Yeah, I mean, this is honestly a kind of, it could be sort of a watershed situation where Major League Soccer, the league, begins to question whether Red Bull is whether Red Bull is a fit and competent owner in the FA, the English FA terms, whether there really is anybody home. Because as we've said, I mean, the funny part is that we just the day before the game, there was a little tidbit of news going around that Oliver Mintzlaff, the now Red Bull CEO, who used to be the head of Red Bull Soccer, was at the MLS owners meeting last week. That being said, like Brit was hinting to a minute ago, and like we've had as a theme going back years, going back to the Chris Armas era on this podcast, is that outside of when the corporation went out and recruited Kevin Thelwell, who appeared to have a somewhat independent stake in building the club and building his own career, which has had a reputation in and outside of Red Bull. Outside of that, we have had a situation where we've had basically an imperial manager who gets to pick his own, going back to Jesse Marsh, an imperial manager who gets to pick his own sporting director, who gets to kind of build everything for his own sake. I think that was maybe, I guess on paper it was a good thing for, Jesse Marsh to be in that role, because I think he actually wanted, the club to do well and came to the club, as a kind of down on his luck manager, as opposed to a, striver like Struber. Whereas now, since Kevin Thelwell left, we've had Jochen Schneider come in, who obviously has a long history with Red Bull, and where there's even been some news bits here and there that make it seem like he's still working his more general Red Bull oversight and coordination job, rather than being anchored in New York and actually having his only professional stake being making sure New York does well. I think both him and Struber, their main objectives is just keeping themselves in the good graces of the Red Bull Corporation. I think, I don't think that, obviously they don't, I think they care about the results in New York to the extent that it would affect their reputation. But beyond that, I think there seems to be a pretty flippant attitude to actually valuing this club, its supporters, its, media. I mean, I think MLS, when MLS looks at a situation like this and sees this kind of indecision like we're talking about, and just the kind of atrophy, including on-field results, but also, let's be honest, I mean, the attendance has cratered the last few years. It hasn't picked up since COVID. There's an incredible, dampening of enthusiasm the last few years. You have to think MLS is eventually looking at whether they really do need to start thinking about a post Red Bull, possibility for this club. That's obviously a very, very far down the road thing, if there even is such a road. But I think if, that kind of thought process is going to be started, it's going to be started by an incident like this.
Some food for thought too is that in the wake of the Mateschitz death, there was a trickle of news. I mean, it was even starting before he died, but for one of Red Bull's two F1 teams, there's a trickle news that the more junior one, AlphaTauri, was seeming to be less and less of a priority or less of an investment, and constant rumors that they're thinking about maybe selling it to someone else, to the point where AlphaTauri actually had to release something officially this year being like, oh, no, we're not going to, like, Red Bull's not going to sell us. They felt the need that they needed to actually get out ahead of it. I'm just like some guy, but like I kind of don't really believe it. I think they doth protest too much a bit. But that's all to say that within the Red Bull umbrella, there's been chatter that like, oh, Mateschitz was the one guy who was kind of like really holding all this all together, and it's not necessarily agreed upon that
they
have to all keep doing all of this stuff. I mean, people were even saying that about the main F1 team, which is, the current world champion. Like unlike Red Bull or Leipzig, they're actually good at that, So if they're talking about that for the $1 billion organization where they're like inventing shit, because Lord knows they're not inventing soccer. It's like that could happen with soccer too. But as you say, it's years down the road.
The AlphaTauri thing, I think the selling thing might have been put out there to lessen the blow of them trying to move from Italy to Milton Keynes. So, damn.
We're moving to fucking Milton Keynes?
Yeah.
Oh, God damn it.
Well, we're moving to American Milton Keynes, Las Vegas.
And I'm just saying, AlphaTauri signs Nick DeVries, Red Bull signs Dante Van Zier. Something's in the water going over there. But also, Red Bull did have a junior driver who got fired for doing racial slur last season too. So file that, another one in the dossier. Not great.
I don't want to move to American Milton Keynes. I don't have to follow the club anymore.
Where is American Milton Keynes?
I said Vegas. Just
God, yeah. Or honestly, after going to Edison for karting, I feel like that had a kind of a Milton Keynes.
A lot of engineers.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I think Hempstead also has a bunch of engineers out there too, right? Anyway, yeah, shit situation. They got to go. I guess as for like what's next, like what for this week, I guess it's still early in the week. I think personally for like the decision of whether I'm going to go to the game on Saturday, they're just, whatever gets shared by the supporters group is a good basis for action. I guess we'll retweet anything that we find appropriate or as well. I'm not feeling tremendously motivated. The one complicating factor for me is that Houston is visiting this weekend, and Houston actually looks kind of good. They've won a couple games. So I'm actually kind of curious to see what Houston is doing, but of course they have to fuck it up for me by making it unacceptable to attend.
Too late to get away tickets too. Damn.
Probably isn't. I could just wear a Dynamo thing
and just go up to that section.
Yeah, would that make it okay? I don't know. I've got a scarf.
Yeah, I actually happen to own a piece of Dynamo gear from my past life as well. So
damn.
I have the orange 2-9s shirt. That counts, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I think one of us may be guest appearing on a Dynamo podcast this week. Obviously, we had a lot to cover ourselves this week, so we couldn't do like a joint one or anything. So we will retweet that as need be if you want to get that perspective as well. Humorously enough, the guys who reached out to us for that, they I told them like, oh, actually, as it happens, I'm from Houston and kind of, worked for the club for a summer. And they said, well, go figure, we're from New Jersey. So I guess it was just it was a trade. They were the players to be named later. I got sent up here first, and then they got sent back.
Cash consideration.
We still have Ben Mindstand on loan to Houston.
Yeah, that's true.
Even though his contract's on our books.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, he got a loan from his loan to Austin at some point there. It was weird.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of co-ownership, very Serie A stuff.
God. When I was on the way to the Mets game yesterday, just like I feel like this always happens. If it doesn't happen to you directly, like every time I've gone to a Mets game, there's been like a random tourist family who ends up chatting up someone, being like, "Oh, so it's like stations in like 2 stops or something." And then I was that guy on the train because everyone loves to comment on my Mets jacket. It's a real ego boost, I have to say. I know how people feel now when they get compliments on their appearance. It's nice, but he starts telling me about, oh yeah, we just I've been going to all doing all the New York City stuff. We visited Philly. We were up here in Philly and just went to New York. And then his daughter was like, yeah, the food in Philly sucked. But then he starts telling me all this stadiums. Like, yeah, I've been to New Yankee. I've been to the World Series at New Yankee Stadium. Been to the World Series at Arlington. Been to the World Series and listening off. He's like, I go to the World Series and the Super Bowl every year. I was like, man, this guy's from Dallas. I was like, what the? Excuse me? What the fuck?
Was he wearing all Marlins gear? Was he wearing a big orange Marlins jersey?
Yeah, so I expect he's going to be at RBI on Saturday.
Yeah,
I go to
sick.
every game every week. You know? And I was like, wow, this is really like who...
I go to MLS Cup every year.
We won't have made it until that happens.
I go to the League's Cup final every year. Is going to be in his future.
He was nice. If by some cruel accident of whatever he listens to this, I mean, he was nice, but like fucking bizarre. And he was like, I mean, MetLife sucks. I was like, yeah, dude, so I've heard. I've lived here for a decade and I haven't gone. But this is also, it was informative because I think this is who the team's marketing is trying to get. It's like, people who spend like 140% of their annual income on sports tickets.
Just going to whatever sports in town. Yeah. Where are you guys going to sports tonight?
But yeah,
God, I would love to have the ability to go to every MLS Cup.
I can't. It's like maybe I think it's just some people make make more money than, like, I don't know, maybe just like as a general contractor or something and just doesn't pay his workers. That's pretty common. Or like it might be that, and he also just has like 20 credit cards. I don't know. It's funny how money, it's weird.
I feel like usually guys like that have invented like one part that is required for the F-22 project, and and that's it.
Yeah, that's a good shout. And they just keep on ordering it over and over again. Like the Pentagon has accidentally been ordering it for 40 years.
In case it breaks, they have to replace
it. That Shahid Khan guy who owns the Jaguars and Fulham and all that kind of stuff. He's one of the crazier backgrounds, origin stories of those for me, because apparently his whole thing is that he just ran this like one factory in like Indiana that made like one like socket for car bumpers and like $11 billion.
Exactly. Especially if it's like, no, because I feel like those things are always like, oh, if like a safety regulation gets you, then you're set for life.
Right.
It's like
exactly.
they have to buy your part. Yeah.
It's like getting a duty-free license. Like, yeah.
And that's how he ended up owning all of the Michael Jackson discography.
Yeah, that too.
Oh my God. What a fucking guy. Yeah, maybe does he own an MLS team yet? Anyone have
Just
his card?
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately Todd Bowley loves the Red Bull structure, so he might be one of those.
Why?
I'll take
What
Todd.
about
I'll
it?
take Todd.
Yeah.
I'm here to have a meal.
Yeah. Yeah, we could actually, honestly, among Red Bull's problems is not going through managers too quickly. We really do give him a solid 3 years. Even Armis got like, what, 2.5, 3 years?
2 years, yeah.
And then you would argue that Graham Potter overstayed his welcome, though. But yeah.
But
I'll take Todd.
Sure.
Go on down,
Let's
Todd.
cook.
If
Why
we
not?
have Todd, we'll have CCJ on a 7-year contract. But
Hey, let's
go.
just let him cook. Yeah.
I bet it would be very typical if like Putin put in a bid.
Oh God.
Obviously, it wouldn't be accepted, but it's just saying. I mean, I don't know. Stranger things have happened. That
Tim Cahill is going to buy our team with
Oh
crypto.
God. Yeah.
He is really embarrassed that his lecture got interrupted at Harvard Business School by Mr. Beast. So he's like, I gotta outdo him and write tackles minus passes equals goals ? And chalk on the board. Man, oh fuck! I got a coloring sheet I gotta do. I forgot. But yeah, weird week. Oh, and the weirdest, the extra dollop of weirdness to the week is that, like, walking into the game, I was trying to, log into my fucking Ticketmaster thing because the future is so cool. I love the future.
Yep.
I have to, log in and fucking reset my password because I have 80 different passwords to Ticketmaster. And, I supported you. I thought it was good and cool when you ripped off all the Taylor Swift people. That I was behind you for that. But now you've wronged me, and now you will be hearing from me here now. So I was just like mildly annoyed sitting there because obviously, like, the signal doesn't work, yada yada. So I'm like pissed off, and then eventually the guys working in the gate are like, if you just go over to the box office, if you're having problems, they can just look it up and print it off to you. So I do that. Actually, like right when I get to the box office, my app finally loads. Then he prints it anyway, and or he gives me a link, and I go up. So I still have to use my phone. And when I'm going through the metal detector, when I pick up my stuff off the table, I'm like sort of in a rush because I was also like going to be on time for this match. I was on the same train as Alex and Kate. They were late. I was early. It was wild. And I was fuddling through all this stuff, and the universe is like, fuck you, you're not going to be in early for a match. It's not going to happen. So I was like grabbing all my stuff, and then I dropped my phone on the bare-ass concrete outside the Honda gate, and it absolutely shatters my screen. And to the point where, I'd been playing with fire for a while, but then my entire screen broke. And I was like, oh, I just can't get into the game now because my entire screen broke. And to be fair, it's that I see him every time we go. It's that one guy at Honda Gate. He was very nice and chill about it and genuinely felt bad for me. And he was like, so we went over and got a printout ticket. But then I was just like in that really like stinky mood for like 60 minutes until the incident happened. The incident. I feel like it just feels right to do it in French because it's a European moment. Until the incident happened, I was just like, it was the combination of feeling like vaguely wronged because I was like, I shouldn't have had to been doing that, but also like I'm the one who dropped my phone, so I'm like, it's my fault still. But ultimately, the Google regime did give it to me free. So if you do break your screen, break it all the way because then it's covered for some reason. That's my advice. I support it. But I was in a weird mood until the incident happened. So then on the way home, it was like, it was a weird day. It was a nice little weird day. And I did feel very clever for figuring out how to use all my voice command stuff to make my phone work anyway. Yeah. But I couldn't read all the posts about what happened. I had to rely on you guys. It was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry for your loss, but it's also like not that bad because you got it covered, which also was part of the fact that this is more weird than frustrating. I feel like
absolutely,
yeah, right.
And then I caught the brand new subway train, like the new train set on the way to DSA League. Scored 2 goals in the game. 2 of our team. Oh, we're all on the same team now. So now we're on Barca Ehrenreich. Haddad, different team, sucks.
Bozo Brigade.
Juan, different team, sucks. So we got a draw to start the league. I scored 2 of the 3 goals. Was feeling pretty good. Should have, so close to the third. I was feeling good. And then I got home and I was supposed to go on a date, and then I got broken up with. And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, that's a weird week. Anyway.
And then Schubert didn't get fired. And I was like, I thought like, we were in like a up, down pattern, and then it broke.
Well, this is the Ticketmaster thing. Taylor Swift broke up with her boyfriend just to get retribution back at you through the energy of the world and universe.
I don't understand the full chain of custody there, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Let's see what happens next. Yeah.
I'm kind of don't want to. I'm worried it might go like worse.
I guess effectively the 2023 New York Red Bulls season is over.
That's true.
Yeah,
we haven't said salad yet, but this is no longer salad.
This is pretty beyond salad.
We're on the main course now.
This is real. Yeah. meaty stuff. And yeah, I mean, effectively, the season itself, the competition is over. I mean, the main attacking centerpiece has been banished for good reason. There's just queasy vibes everywhere. The team's already in 11th place, a month into the season. It's not looking good. Season is probably over, but I mean, kind of like we've been laying out here, I think we are on the precipice of some pretty big changes at this club. And, only thing you can hope for is that it's, for the better. I don't know how it could be any worse than the situation we found ourselves in now.
Yeah. Thank you for bearing with it. I feel like we had a backlog of just having to do lighter content there, and we just got it all out of the way in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Metro Fan TV is planning on doing a Bocchi the Rock roundtable where we'll be discussing the anime Bocchi the Rock.
You cut me off. I was going to say, explain to the fans at home
what Bocchi the Rock is.
Yeah, but I feel like you've said enough.
Yeah.
Unless there was more in the pitch.
No, actually, that show was so influential to me that I bought a guitar and started taking lessons because of it. So
wow,
big steps for me. I got to think other things to move on my life with now that I have this extra time.
Just make sure it. I don't know. Be careful about the lyrics. Like, don't consume too much Japanese culture. If you know what I mean.
Not too much Belgian culture.
Right. Exactly. 2 countries with a history of animation. All I'm gonna say. All right, Tintin, anime. I'm seeing a connection here. All right.
Q.
Yeah. But yeah. I don't know. So I guess we're playing Houston on the weekend. Is it even appropriate to talk about the game itself?
I don't even want to talk about soccer.
I'd be shocked if we even did win. I guess it'll be interesting to see how the players respond. I mean, I don't know at what point we start thinking about a player mutiny. Or to be clear, I'm not saying I have any reason to think that'll happen, but just like looking at like potential dynamics of losing the locker room even further. I don't know. We're in uncharted territory now. And what you said a moment ago also just reminded me of the big casualty of the season as well. As I feel like I've been having a really fun time watching Corey Burke, but also just enjoying his vibes on social media. And I feel like in a normal timeline, we would be like, Corey Burke would be top cult figure right now. We'd be like really enjoying it. Best player of the season so far. Great posts. Just like really setting the tone if everything else. And I feel bad that he's come into this. It's like, oh, this guy's actually really cool, but now he's having to deal with this bullshit. Hopefully not much longer. But hopefully maybe if, when, I'm going to say when Struber goes, maybe if there'll be enough responsible people left on the coaching staff or something to piece it together, because it also seems noticeable to me that Struber seemed to be acting sort of alone. His coaching staff, it's not like there was no huddle of his coaching staff. There's no huddle really of like his the team
leader players.
Yeah, like the fact that there was never even a huddle of like the team together to discuss things is also bizarre to me. I mean, that was bizarre to me in real time, because it was just in real time, it was hard to tell who was even, like, where the beef even was. Like, who was even being demanded things of, who was even, waiting on who to act. And, maybe we'll get more information from the investigation on, like, who is active and what. But I think, as you're saying, it looks like almost like some of the coaching staff seem to almost be saying, just do it. Just go. Like, just take him out already. So, hopefully there are better and smarter heads in the room that can prevail with this. But even the fact that we've made it to Tuesday night and it's still in this situation is really
I hadn't even thought about it until you brought it up earlier that Struber presumably took training this morning, which is strange to think about.
Yep. Well, Struber out, Vinzier out, real rock bottom. Real questions of whether even Red Bull is going to stay around, but they're handling the situation also.
Yeah, it's just sad in general.
Yeah,
I mean it's just sad. It's not what you follow a club, immerse yourself in a sport for. It's just bad.
Yeah. There's been some reflection today as well, where it's like really, and we've been talking about this for a couple weeks, where like the gas has been really running out of this team for a second now. And I think the main thing keeping us going for a while is just an inertia, just like the friendships we've made through this. Really, it's kind of a nice rhythm to our lives. I mean, during COVID, I know one thing I was saying, and I was seeing other people say about other sports, is that like great defining feature of sports is how it's like kind of a metronome in the background of your life a bit. It's like a nice rhythm to structure your seasons and your way that you think about things and kind of
where you think about time.
Yeah, it's like it can be background noise if you want it to be. It can be at the forefront if you want it to be. Can be a really structuring thing in people's lives, and I think that really has been for us and for I've met like a solid dozen to 20 people by doing this. Like we started this podcast like when we just visited, we graduated school, you, me, and Sam, and we hadn't met Cork yet. We hadn't met any of the guys on MFTV, hadn't met any of, EDSS, Off the Perch, any of the guys that we hang out with and either like online or in person or that we're playing soccer with. It's become like a major part of my life. We've like traveled to places together. It's been a major thing that has been keeping us going to games and not, the Red Bulls literally themselves. So it is really sad to see the actual team fall apart and behave so unacceptably. Because I ultimately we don't have to meet up at Red Bull Arena. We can continue these relationships elsewhere. But it is sad that like the structuring part of that is become such a disaster.
It's so tainted.
Yeah. And feels almost untenable. It's also weird because I was like, making a new friend through another part of my like planning co-op part of my life, who it turns out had also been turned on to the Red Bulls recently, which was really funny to realize. And this is like his first season. And it's like, oh, well, guess like that is not going to bloom probably the way that we thought it would. Like just something to talk about. It's really sad to think about. It seemed like there were a bunch of randos who were like, or not rando. I know that seems a bit catty maybe, but like just a bunch of people who were showing up to the team new. Like there's been a lot of posts online about like, hey, I don't know, guys, I'm going to my first game. Let's like try it out. And this is the way that you're greeting them to the stadium with this sort of fiasco. It's really a shame. It's really sport at its worst. It's really the club not understanding, I think, what the like social and cultural and societal like the role that sports can be for people. It's really total abdication, total disgrace, and hopefully it leads to some very drastic changes. The most superficial and immediately needed is of course Garrett Struberg and Dante Vinzier going and not being a part of this team from here on out. So, any other thoughts? I don't know what kind of runtime we're at here, but unfortunately, a less fun episode this week.
We'll probably be here next week, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna. I feel like we can't end the show abruptly without at least some sort of, thing. I don't know if we're gonna be there on Saturday or if we're gonna be able to talk about the game next week, but this won't be the last that you hear from 202 in general.
Yeah, it'll be an annoying clips show.
You're just going through the back catalog.
Just out of context clips.
That could be kind of fun if you had the patience. If one had the patience for it. Like, my God,
I'll find someone on Fiverr.
I'm gonna. Yeah, I don't know.
We'll get Barbosa football videos.
I'm getting some warm fuzzy thoughts of like the Kevin Thelwell Wicker Man, like sketch. Like I was beginning to dream like last week when we were at Peak Salad. I was like, maybe there'll be another opening to like writing like insane like fictional short stories about the team like we were doing in COVID, which in hindsight is something that only COVID could have allowed.
Yeah.
But I was like, maybe we'll do that again. Wrong. Wrong. Well, who knows what we'll be at next week, but we're planning on talking to you till
Soon.
then.
Yeah.
It's Alex!